Hello, I'm Angelus Demonus. On January 2025, I released a Palace of the Dead solo guide for Pictomancer for those who wanted to obtain the Necromancer title on that job. At the end of March 2025, the 7.2 patch was released, which introduced some changes to the Pictomancer job. On this video, I'll go over what the changes mean for your solo attempts as Pictomancer. When 7.2 dropped, I went in right away with a floor 51-200 run of Pictomancer to see what the changes did for the job. I had a couple targets I was aiming to test, but we certainly got some good looks as I climbed up. The TLDR is that you'll expect some noticeable changes to Pictomancer, but the overall run is still very strong, and you won't have too much to worry about at all. Speedrunners and score runners may get impacted much more due to the 7.2 patch, but gamers sticking to single pulls and just aiming for the title clear are still in great shape. Let's talk more about specific details of what I felt on my reclimb and reclear in 7.2. Utilizing the patch notes as our evidence, let's tackle the noticeable changes in the Muses and Hammer. All Muses and your Hammer had potency drops. In addition, there was a reduction in AoE damage to anything after the first target. What that translates to in Palace of the Dead is a noticeable change to your opening burst and group pulls. You will generally take an additional 1 to 3 GCDs to kill higher floor enemies with your entire burst. A big example of this is how I handled Anzus. Prior to 7.2, we could nuke an Anzu well before its Flying Frenzy attack, or its belly flop as I like to call it. In 7.2, I had pulled about 5 or 6 of them, and every kill was a few GCDs after Flying Frenzy went off.
Yeah, I just missed it. So I think I was able to kill an Anzu before he did the belly flops.
I had tried a Frost Dragon in 181+,
Yeah, that still feels pretty good. I mean, you got the full burst off, the full 2 minute, and we kind of handled him okay.
and Iron Courses in 191+.
Definitely a lot less punch, because I usually would kill that in time, but at least we did still do it in the 2 minutes, so that's not bad.
I still killed them very convincingly, even though it took slightly longer to do it. The AoE damage drop-off to secondary targets was definitely noticeable, and probably the biggest nerf that I could tell. Whereas before, it didn't feel too bad to have a tag-along when fighting stuff and relying on your Muse and Hammer Burst to just help kill multiple targets. Now you probably want to make sure you don't make the mistake of multi-pulling if you didn't intend to. You could just distribute your Muse and Hammer to each target to split the damage up more, but it's still a reduction in AoE damage. Per the patch notes, they did increase the potencies of your main hard-casted GCDs, and this was noticeable in a positive way. No ability floors for Pictomancer, which would feel awful prior to 7.2, actually felt pretty good and more manageable. It still sucks to not have any of your Muses and Hammer available at all, but you do feel like you're actually doing respectable damage. Here's an example of me taking out a floor 185 Mimic in a no abilities floor.
Nice dodge. Perfect stagger kite in there. I don't know if I would feel that same confidence pre-patch, I'm not gonna lie.
Although you had a decrease in potencies in your Muses, but an increase in your GCD potency, the end result is that all bosses felt the same as before. A big test I wanted to see was the Behemoth push. and I still nearly defeated Behemoth before the first meteor drop, which was a highlight of Pictomancer's power prior to 7.2, even though I had never personally accomplished that feat. Another example was the floor 150 boss, where I was still able to defeat Tisiphone in 1 strength and 1 loss in 2 cycles or roughly 3 minutes, and roughly 10 seconds slower than my live tutorial 150 attempt. Lastly, a related update to the 7.2, although not directly to Pictomancer, was the introduction of Jog, a buff all jobs received after using Sprint if you are out of combat once it wears off. Tests had shown it was a similar movement speed increase to the physical range roll ability Peloton. Optimizing the usage of Jog may be interesting as all of us get used to this new addition, but it certainly helps if you're doing a run back to check chests before leaving a floor, and a huge help on the final run towards victory on floor 200. This should hopefully cover it. If I missed anything you might be wondering about, please leave them in the comments below so we can discuss it. If I didn't cover it in my 7.2 reclear, I will absolutely go back in and check something out if it needs to be tested. For aspiring necromancers who are trying to get your clear on Pictomancer, I would mind the adjustments to the job for sure, but all the information I provided on the solo guides are still valid, and you don't have to make any major changes to your climb. Just be a little more careful using your burst to kill any dangerous floor enemies, as it will take slightly longer and you'll be fine. Good luck out there, have fun, and keep me posted on your runs.